And the withdrawal rates that people typically think of, they'll have heard that 4% rule in the
Hmm.
past, which is never actually a 4% rule. It's just the way it was put out into the world. It was
Yep.
really like a 4.4% rule back in the 90s. This guy named Bill Bengen basically studied markets with the question of how much can we withdraw from a portfolio for 30 years and never run out of money. And so that's what he did. He updated those numbers with more asset classes in his
Okay.
scenarios, and that number's gone up. So we'll talk about that today. And then we also knew about some folks who came out and basically said, well, hold on a second. Like most people, if you're in a downturn, choose to tighten their belts. And if that's real and they're willing to do that, can they take out more before a downturn occurs? So that's these guys, Guyton and Klinger, and we can talk about them as well. So we'll
And
kind of walk through some scenarios today.
yeah, and we'll touch on it more as well. But one of the things that I think we've both found to be true is spending doesn't stay the same in retirement,
Yeah.
right? And certainly to your point with Guyton and Klinger, which we'll dive into, markets and what we could spend certainly dictate that.
Yep.
But when we put two retirees side by side, all things being true or equal of a 55 or 60-year-old versus somebody that's in their 80s, their spending's probably going to look different, and we should account for that, right?
Yes.
Because I think personally, cardinal sin of retirement is getting to the end of our life and we have so much money left over. And part of our job is to say, right, your famous saying, like, money is simply a tool, simply a resource. And how do we use it to create and design this one meaningful life? And so the beauty behind all of this is if we can know these numbers and how they adjust over time, what can we use to live a fulfilled life?
Yeah, and the thing that you're speaking of like we're kind of talking of smile in
Hmm.
retirement spending is we spend more in the early years and then it kind of dips and then it goes back up when we maybe need more health care or things like that.
Right.
I see that playing out with a client who I met with this week who's about to turn 80. And we spent a lot more money going on trips to Europe and doing other things. And now we're kind of in a phase where we don't want to travel as much anymore. And we
Right.
really like being home and doing other things around town. So we're not going to be traveling and doing the things that were that extra expense earlier in the years. So I totally see that playing out time and again. We don't One of the things that we see, we actually do have a how much do I need to retire quiz that people can, just click below and we get, but we get that back all the time. And the frame that we give you back is exactly this kind of a conversation around, well, when do you actually want to retire? And what do you actually want it to look like? And so, like, an example that's fairly common these days is someone will have around like 1.8 million in assets and they'll be making, a couple 100,000 in income and they'll be saving, a good percentage of their net worth, I mean, their income every year. And the question is like, well, what happens to those assets? What if in 10 years I want to retire? And so, I just kind of gave a really blanketed, simple assumption of investing 80% in stocks and 20% in bonds. And if we do that, the 1.8 million is going to grow on its own. And then the savings that we have every month is going to grow. And then, 10 years from now, that 1.8 million with savings would have grown to about 4.7 million. And it's like, well, what if we retire then? Is that enough to retire on? So then what you actually have to go look at is you have to say, well, how much do I need to retire? What do I need to live life on? And I give this as an example because the number one thing that we care about for Are You Okay Retiring is not just how much money do you have? It's how much does that need to support? So once we understand that and we say, well, what if you need, $12,000 a month today? Well, at retirement, that would be 16,000 a month that it would need to support. And then the question is like, well, would that be enough? And then we go look and see, like, are you going to be short? Are you going to have enough? If you're not going to have enough, what's the plan? Are we going to choose to not just fully retire, but work part time? Or do we have more than enough and we can be totally free of working? Um, it's all woven into a scenario that's based on your real numbers with where your assets are held and what you can actually do.